I want to talk about another thing that really is important to good writing. And that's, well, hang on. First, I'm Bob Graham, and I work at SpearPoint Ink. And what we do is we help authors, small business owners, become the authors of their story about their business so that they can generate more leads, more referrals, more business, more credibility. So I'm at the beach today. You can probably hear the ocean in the background. There is the lovely Atlantic Ocean. We're in Ocean City, Maryland. And you can see it's pretty cloudy. There's not a lot of people on the beach. There's a lifeguard station, but you can see it's very uncrowded today because it's about 5 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon. And most of the people have gone in because they're anticipating rain. And I want to talk about anticipation in writing because anticipation is a big part of why we read. It's part of why we consume anything from movies to songs to books to art. We're anticipating, and good writing involves some anticipation where you have the reader anticipating that you're going to explain to them something. You're anticipating that I'm going to explain to you anticipation right now, and you're not sure how I'm going to do it. You're not really sure why I'm at the beach. You're not sure why I'm getting pelted by light rain all of a sudden, but you're anticipating that I'm going to explain something to you that's of value to you. And if you don't have that anticipation, you're going to think, oh, this isn't for me, because we want some anticipation. We want to not fully know exactly what's coming. And so a good book or any good piece of writing involves some anticipation. We want the reader to anticipate certain things. We might set it out and say, here are 3 examples. And so the reader is anticipating 1 thing, 2 things, 3 things. And they're following along, looking for the first thing, the second thing, and the third thing. And they're also keeping track in their head. Is this 1, 2, 3? So even if I don't say it's the first thing, it's the second thing, it's the third thing, they're still listening for it. They're still watching for it because we like the order of that. So we like the fact that it's 1, 2, 3. And so anticipation can be really valuable as a tool for writing if we can help the reader anticipate things. So I was working with an author on a book, and he has a chapter that's called On the Verge of ... And then the next chapter is the tipping point. And so we have this chapter that's on the verge of, and you read about it, and it's anticipating what's coming. In fact, throughout the whole book, first 3/4 of the book, he's talked about this thing without describing it exactly as it is. Then we finally hit the on the verge of chapter, and then we move to this tipping point chapter where he explains what the tipping point is. And so he's built up the anticipation. The readers had this hint that something big is coming in this nonfiction book. It's a weight loss, fitness, spirituality book. And it's coming, but the reader doesn't know when it's coming, and they don't quite know exactly what it is. But it's hanging out there. And we like that as readers. We like to not know everything, because if we know everything right away, why are we reading it? So when I come to the ocean, I always think about anticipation. I look out at the waves. I like to look at the waves, and I like to see how they go, because we can't know how every wave is going to look. You just can't. It's always different, every single wave. Same thing with the sunrise. We're on the east coast of the United States, and so the sun rises every morning. And I know roughly where it's going to rise if I get up for sunrise. And I know roughly that it's going to be this big yellow ball. But I don't know exactly where, and I don't know exactly when, and I don't know exactly what it's going to look like around it. Sometimes it's got a glow around it. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just flies out of the ocean in a matter of, a minute and a half. Sometimes it seems like it takes longer. Even when I'm walking along the beach, as I am now, I'm looking, and I wasn't anticipating seeing a piece of orange. But more likely on the beach would be seeing something like someone built a castle earlier today. They actually did a really nice job. That's pretty good artwork there. Look at that. That's got some texture. I'm pretty impressed by that. I wasn't anticipating a castle of that nature. Nor were all the people here this week at the beach anticipating the day of today. the weather today, because you can see it's foggy, it's cloudy, it's misty, it's raining a little bit right now. And so they weren't anticipating that, because if we were anticipating it, we probably wouldn't have come this week to the beach. But there's a storm down in the south part of the U.S. and it's coming up to the east, and I think this is the start of it. As I keep walking around, I don't know what I'll see, but lo and behold, I walk a little further and I see lots of tire tracks from one of the ATVs for the lifeguards. I see a bird, and then I see another castle here. Now look at this castle. Pretty nice castle. Nice little moat around it. I wasn't anticipating that. And so now that I've started to look at things and I'm anticipating them, you don't know what's coming and I don't know what's coming. So I'm going to continue walking, and I'm making a point here, because if we do this in our writing, we keep the reader's interest. So I've got your interest now, probably because you're going, I wonder what else this guy's going to find as he walks along the beach here. Will he find a horseshoe crab? No, not yet. Will he find a bigger castle? Well, lo and behold, there's a bigger castle. I was anticipating finding all these castles. I didn't plan this, it just sort of happened. And that's the anticipation. Now, I did know this chair has now been out here for about 24 hours. If you look back that way to the building up to the right of the trash can, that's where I'm staying, on the 5th floor, the top floor. And we've been looking out at this chair for the last 24 hours. Now, when we talk about anticipation, let me explain to you. I anticipated that someone left their chair and they were going to come get it. That would make sense. I've anticipated that for about 24 hours. Hasn't happened yet. No one's come to get it. And so think about how this relates to your writing. When we're writing, not knowing exactly what's going to happen really helps the reader. So a good nonfiction book, which is what I help people write, it sets up what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen in general, but we don't give the specific details. So I knew I was going to walk along the beach here, but I didn't know what I was going to find. I didn't know I was going to find this really big trench along here that someone dug up, it looks like, as a way to get up this hill. I just didn't know these things. And that's part of the fun of going for a walk along the beach. You never know if you're going to find a big shell or a little shell or seaweed or a dead fish or a dead crab or who knows. And that anticipation is what makes me want to go for a walk. It's what makes your reader want to keep reading. And a lot of times people, when I'm working with them on books, are like, well, what's going to keep the reader reading? What keeps the reader reading is anticipation. When you set things up and tell them that something else is coming along, and here's I'm leading you to a place. I want to get you somewhere. I want you to understand this fully. So books that have, 5 strategies for how to be more effective in marketing, or 7 habits of highly effective people. Very popular book by Stephen Covey had 7 habits. You knew from the title that there were 7. And so as you read that book, you got through the first one, you knew the second one, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and finally the 7th. And it was clear from that structure what was coming. The 5 Dysfunctions of the Team by Patrick Lencioni had 5 dysfunctions. So sometimes when you're writing a book, if you can break things down into that really clear way of giving them a number, that can be a really powerful device for your book, for building anticipation, and also for building structure. So if you're struggling with writing a book, sometimes the easiest thing to do is just break it down into easy steps. People always want to make it harder than it needs to be, but I will tell you, I wrote a book called The 55 Soft Skills That Guide Employee and Organizational Success. And one of the keys to that book, once I realized I wrote it a certain way, and then I came back and I wrote in a very structured way where each of those soft skills had a page. And the first time I wrote, I didn't do it that way. And I really didn't like it. It didn't make sense. It wasn't easy to follow. It wasn't easy to write. But when I rewrote it with that structure of 55 and each thing had a page, just jumped out. It just fell into place. So if you're struggling with the book, if you're struggling with some piece of writing, think about what the reader needs to anticipate and the structure that you can create to bring them into that. Now, if you're someone who's thinking about writing a book, or you've tried to write a book and you haven't had success, I would love to talk to you, because one of the things I'm really good at is bringing the structure to people's ideas, pulling a variety of ideas together into a real workable outline so that you, or in some cases I, can write the book for you, so that you have a book that has structure, that builds anticipation, and keeps the reader engaged, but also understanding where they are at every point. If that's something that interests you, I'd love to talk to you more. So just go and the link's below, and let's talk. See you real soon.
Do you want to write your own book? Please visit timewithbob.com or SpearPointInk.com.